Rosenwald School. He created the Rosenwald School. 1924, around the same time they passed that law, they start educating black people. Now, how they went after the Indians on the reservation and all of that shit. Now this how they went after all the black people. They started setting up education for them niggas' ass. All right, they setting up education for their motherfucking ass now. And it's called the Rosenwald School. Was any of the more than 5,000 schools, shops, and teacher homes in the United States that were built primarily for the education of African American. And we know they didn't call them African American back then. So these hoes playing on words. Children in the South during the early 20th century, the project was the product of the partnership of Julius Rosenwald, a Jewish American clother, who became part owner and president of Sears, Rosenbuck and Company, and an African-American leader, education, and philanthropist, Booker T. Washington, who was the president of the Tuskegee Institute. All right? So that nigga built all of that shit, all them little black colleges. That nigga built all the elementaries, all the way through the South, nigga. So when I talk about the making or the creating of a Negro, all of these stories and shit that we got, which where we got it from? Through that education system. When you go in school, you sit your ass down and you listen. And let a nigga program you. That's how it worked when you're dealing with free education. A lot of people homeschooled back then. Hold on, we're going to see who he worked for and where he came from. All right? It's called the Origins of the Origins of the Compulsory Schooling, right? In order to dream, we have limited resources. And the people yield themselves with perfect docility in our molding hand. The present education conventions fade from our minds and unhampered by tradition. We work on our own goodwill upon grateful and responsive rural folk. We should not try to make these people or any other children into philosophers or men of learning of science. We are not to raise up among the authors, orators, poets, and men of letters. We shall not search for embryo great artists, painters, musicians, nor will we cherish even the humble ambitions to raise up among them lawyers, doctors, preachers, statesmen, in whom we now ample supply. Frederick T. Gates, business advisor to John D. Rockefeller in 1913. These are the people they were about to implement a new play and goddamn which they would reteach history. That will shape the minds of the future, goddamn, so motherfuckers can always be up under them. Alright? So they about to program these people that they call quote unquote African American and these people that they call Native American. They about to program them. And white folks feel like they own Native Americans and Mexicans. That's why on their birth certificate, them hoes got to put white. Why they do them like that? Because they're a product of them. They bred through their ass, and that's what gave them rights to the land. And now they got to get rid of your ass. It ain't no coincidence why when you look around the world, I don't give a fuck what anybody at. And they done been through slavery and everything. Guess what they had though? They got a motherfucking home. They know where they from. Your ass the only one ain't got no home, and these folks got you looking outside of where your ass at. You questioning where you at, and ain't nobody else accepted your ass. Ain't none of them African nations gonna just came up on a money play just this year, 2020. Ain't nobody came looking for your ass. You the greatest thing on the earth. If you was somebody shit nigga, they'll want your ass back. Just to even have a chance in this shit. Ain't nobody came looking for your ass though. Alright, so they started putting this school play together. The current American school system took root around the turn of the century in 1903. John D. Rockefeller founded the General Education Board, which provided major funding for schools across the country and was especially active in promoting the state-controlled public school movement. The General Education Board was not interested in encouraging critical thinkers. Rather, its focus was to organize children and create reliable, predictable, obedient citizens. You understand that? Listen, the General Education Board was not interested in encouraging critical thinking. Rather, its focus was organizing children and creating reliable, predictable, obedient citizens. As award-winning former teacher John Gallardo, school was looked upon from the first part of the 20th century as the brand of industry and a tool of governance. Okay? The Rockefellers, along with other financial elite and philanthropist organizations such as the Gates, Carnegies, and the Vanderbilts, have been able to mold society by funding and pushing compulsory state schooling for the masses. Here's a timeline that showed a radical shift education and influence and financial elite. In 1840, literacy rates high school. Up until 1840, the American school system was mainly private. Docile homeschooling was common. American were educated literacy rate-wise. 1902, Rockefeller creates the General Education Board. At the ultimate cost of $129 million, the General Education Board provided major funding for schools across the nation and was very influential in shaping the current school system. 1913, Frederick Gates directed charity of the Rockefeller Foundation, Rice in Our Dream. The people yield themselves with perfect docility in our molding hands. In our dream, we have limited resources and people yield themselves with perfect docility to our molding hand. The present education convention fade from our minds and unhampered by tradition. We work on our own goodwill upon grateful and responsive rural folk. We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning of science. We are not to raise them up among us with authors, orators, poets, men of letters. We shall not search embryo, great artists, painters, musicians, nor will we cherish the humble ambition to raise up from among lawyers, doctors, preachers, statesmen, or whom we now ample supply. Alright? So by this time, they about to goddamn create you and give you a whole nother motherfucking identity. Now you done went into something, whatever your tribesman name or whatever you was before then, now you have become colored. Alright? You have become colored and state law has legislated the shit in. The Deep South is now on black codes from the 1600s and the 13 colonies. Alright? They finna bang the black codes again. They go for if you was a free black man or if your ass was a slave. Alright? All rules apply to every nigga of color. And they go for the Indians too.